Yo, what it do? It's your boy Yellow the Poet, and today I have Miss J. Rosemarie Francis. She is definitely a podcast creator, mentor, and aspiring podcaster, and she has been doing many things since the last time. This is the second appearance, so we are going to learn more about the new things that Miss Rosemarie has going on. Please, thank you so much for joining YTP Entertainment. Welcome back. Definitely appreciate having you. Please let everybody know what you got going on.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me again. It's a pleasure to be here. Um, well, I mean, what can I tell you? I am a podcaster, but before that, I'm a mom and I'm now a grandmother of three. So, no, it didn't all happen in the last year, but yeah.
All right,
And
now
yeah.
it's a beautiful thing. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. So we were talking before we got on here. You say you've been to other countries now. What was those experiences like?
It's mixed. So one of my dreams is to travel to different countries and just hang out there, not vacation, but just hang out.
Hmm.
And I found that in the last few years, I've been just visiting family. Like I grew up in England, so I went back to England last year. My dad died,
Oh,
and yeah, and I spent some time with my mom. She's 89,
mm.
and my and an uncle he's 92. So got to hang out with the old folks, but I also got to hang out with young folks and rediscover some family that I.
That's
So that was an interesting experience, but it brought back a lot of painful memories. So it was a mixed thing. Yeah.
understood. So, since you've been traveling and doing more things with your podcast, what are some of the new things you got going on with the podcast?
So I don't know if you remember, but I had two podcasts. I started Solo Moms Talk, and that to promote mothers raising children alone. And then I got to like podcasting so much, I started mentoring, and I started a second podcast called Tools of the Podcast Trade. And it's exactly what it is. We discuss tools and strategies we use in podcasting. And I find it's a great way to talk about podcasting, something that I enjoy doing, and to help those aspiring podcasters looking for that little bit of help. I don't necessarily have to help you start, although I can do that because I've been through the whole process
Right.
twice now. And so my experience in England, though, got me to, I'm just now processing my childhood, which was really weird. Some people go through therapy
Yeah.
and or they experience a trauma as they live.
Hmm.
I never experienced a trauma. What I experienced was life as a result of the trauma, if you can
Okay.
understand that.
Yes.
And
That,
so, yeah, so going back to England really opened up a lot of old stuff. And I started a podcast called Abandoned Daughters of Caribbean Moms
mm,
because it's exactly what it sounds like. Because I started a meetup group while I was in England. I found that there were a lot of women, mostly midlife women who are still suffering the trauma from being left alone in the Caribbean without their mom.
wow.
Yeah, so I started that as a form of therapy for myself, but also as a way for hopefully it's new, hopefully other women to express what they're feeling. Yeah.
Fact.
Yeah.
Hey, well, that's a blessing. At least you. saw through it enough to take that as an opportunity to not only help yourself, but to help somebody else too.
Yeah.
Because some of the people, they look for outlets and don't know exactly where to look at. But then when you
Right.
open a door of opportunity for them to actually step in there and take a look at that, like
Yeah.
say for your podcast, or if they go to uh a therapist, or if they go to see a psychiatrist, whomever they go
Yeah.
to see, open that door of opportunity for them to actually heal themselves, and you just opened up another door for
Yeah.
them to help heal themselves, and that's a good thing. That's what's up.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
blessing. Awesome, awesome. So with some of the people that you've run into, um, how do you feel? How effective do you feel your podcast has been to the people?
I think it is, and like I said, it's new. I'm only up to episode 4, so it's fairly new. But I did start a meetup group, and I listened to the stories of those people in the meetup group. The if there's something strange. I mentioned that I didn't live the trauma. Even though I experienced it, I didn't live it. What I lived was the result of being traumatized. And
Right.
a lot of these women, like I'm sure other people who've been through trauma, didn't understand why they acted the way they did or were behaving the way they did. I met one woman who she was married and she was going through a third divorce. And what she said to me, I just don't understand. I just can't seem to keep a marriage. And I understood her because I was there too,
Wow.
right? The other thing is I was house sitting for someone and they gave me room in their fridge to store things, and they would say, you know, the kitchen is yours, do what you want. But I found myself hiding my stuff away,
Oh
trying
wow.
to keep stuff out of because I didn't want to be in their way. Do you
Mhm.
follow? And
Yeah.
I'd go to my room and be in my room because I didn't want to be in anybody's way.
Yeah.
And I got to thinking, why am I like that? But it's because as a child, I was always shuffled away, you know,
Mhm.
go there, you know, nobody wanted me in their space. And
Right.
so I found that I was acting out that trauma, but I'm only doing it now that I'm, you know, I'm too old to care, really. But it helps that when I do the self-reflection, I'm finding out why it is that I'm doing that. And so these women are like that. And I think that's something this podcast can help those women with is realize why it is I'm acting the way I'm acting and I'm doing the things I'm doing and I'm making the decisions I'm making. Because there is a reason why you look back and say, man, that was some dumb stuff I just did. I wonder why I did that. Because you're just now reacting to the trauma.
Right.
Yeah.
So at what point um do you feel like is a good time to actually start doing the self-reflecting and helping to get yourself in a better position than what you would normally be in?
I think now you should always be doing self-reflection. And now
Mhm.
is a good time, right? So even if you don't feel like you've been going through anything, it's always healthy to do self-reflection, to think about your life, to think about what you've done in the past or what you've been in the past, and if you are where you want to be. I mean, are you the person you want to be? And if you're not, why? You know, and if you're not, what is stopping you? Right?
Exactly.
And it's time to kick those doors down and, you know, be who you want to be. And that
Exactly.
only happens once you start that introspection, that going in and trying to figure out, you know, what's going on inside of you. Who are you and what do you want?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely. Definitely. So with that being said, what would the process be to start self-reflecting for those who don't really know where to start or how to get started?
Well, I think my favorite tool is a journal. I have a program I call Shift, Heal, Empower.
Awesome.
But I think the first place you start on that reflection is to write things down. You
Mhm.
know, what is it you want? Who are you? What is it you want? And what's stopping you from getting what you want?
Mhm.
And once you figure out what's stopping you, you set some goals to reach to get to what you want. Whatever
Mhm.
it is that's stopping you, whether it's, a college degree or maybe a better job or a second job or therapy. I mean, I don't know, start a podcast, whatever it is that's stopping you. But write those things down,
Right.
journal them, go back and read and reflect, do some research, read books, and figure out what it is, who you are, what it is you want, and figure out how to get those things. The other thing you have to do to learn, and this is huge, you have to change the way you think, because
Yes.
whatever you were taught is wrong.
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
know so whatever you were taught is wrong, and you got to figure out how to shift that mindset. We I am now, when I was a little girl, I used to say I would never get married until I was 44, and
Yeah.
that time it's too late to have kids, so I was happy with that.
Oh,
But it never happened that way, because that's not the way we're fashioned as women.
mhm.
We're taught that, it's that you once you get to a certain age, you family and a husband and all of that, and
Mhm.
you put your life on the back burner.
Mhm.
That may not be the purpose God had for you, at
Mhm.
least not in the order you took it, right?
Right.
Not in the order society sent you. So in that respect, you'd have to shift your mindset. I think it was you who asked me the last time about teenage moms. I'm not sure if it was you, it might have been another host. What advice would I give to a teenage mom? And that's the advice I would give to a teenage mom. Shift that mindset from the time you're 9, 10, you're looking for a husband.
Right.
Not in the physical sense, but you're thinking that's who I'm supposed to be, somebody's wife and mother. Shift
Mhm.
that mindset. What is it that God wants you to be and do?
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
So I think that's where it starts, the mindset, and to do that self-reflection.
Right.
Yeah.
So, in shifting the mindset, do you think that some people still add their own personal twists besides what they learn is supposed to be spiritual? Because it may be spiritual to us, we may understand what a spiritual connection is, but somebody else may encounter that spiritual connection but still add their own twist. Do you think that that's a safe thing to do, or do you think they're kind of still out of touch and need more practice?
Well, I do think I do think the personal twist is needed. I'm learning that it doesn't matter what it is, there's no one size fits all,
Mhm.
right? Your life is your own life, your own journey. That life you will have to give an account of, no matter what people tell you to do. So you got to figure out what me going to, Florida to live, maybe a no-no. You going to Florida to live might be the perfect thing for you to do. There's
Right.
nothing wrong with living in Florida. It's just
Right.
that it's not your place to live. Do you follow? Right.
Mhm.
So I think there's nothing wrong with putting your own personal twist on it if that twist is informed,
Mhm.
meaning you're not walking in ignorance. You're fully aware of what you're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That definitely makes sense, no doubt. No doubt about that. So you also talked about She, your project with She. What is the overall message that you want the people to get out of that project?
Is to, well, the bottom line is to see yourself as God sees you. But it shift, so you shift your mindset to think differently. You heal, you seek healing, however that turns out for you.
Mhm.
So you seek healing from whatever it is that's stopping you from getting to where you want to be,
Right.
right? It could be forgiveness, it could be therapy, it could be self-forgiveness. It's a host of things to be healed from. And there's a bunch of exercises you do, doing all of that, shifting your mindset and getting healing will empower you to live the life you want, to choose the life you want,
Mhm. Yes,
right?
yes,
Yeah.
indeed. So, at what point does all of your three podcasts collaborate with one another or piggyback off of one another?
I think it always comes back to the mindset,
Okay.
right? And it's a good question because for the longest while, people say to me, you know, you have this platform, do this. Why don't you coach? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? And I'm thinking, but I can't make two mesh. I mean, how do I mesh solo moms with podcasting?
Right.
And it is the mindset, right?
Mhm.
I have um a framework as well for podcasting, and it's the three M's. Mindset is my number one again, because
Mhm.
it took me 6 years to start my first podcast. And it was
Okay.
my mind that stopped me from starting my first podcast.
Understood.
So it's it's the same with everything we do. Our mind, whether you call it fear, whether you call it imposter syndrome, whether you call it the lizard brain, it's all the mind.
Yes, yes,
Once you get control of that mind, you can do anything.
yes, yes, indeed. So, what would a person's um, overall perception of themselves do to help them advance? What would that do to help them advance?
Well, what do you mean?
So, if they perceive themselves in a negative light and they're trying to do some self-preservation, how would that help them get through that? If they see themselves in a positive light and they're trying to do self-preservation, how do they advance from that?
Well, I mean, I don't know what you mean by self-preservation, but that could be the death knell for whatever dream you have,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Self-preservation. Because your mind and your body, even your body, is meant to self-preserve,
Mhm.
right? There's a reason you don't want to get on stage and speak because you're scared,
Yeah.
right? There's a reason, there's a reason you don't want to do certain things. It's because you're scared and your body is designed that way to protect you,
Mhm.
self-preservation. And so you can't, anytime you get in the mindset of preserving self, you have to think to yourself, is this a good thing? Or is this my lizard brain telling me, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, because
Right.
because we're designed to self-preserve.
Mhm. So self-reflection and self-preservation is one and the same, just different ways of saying it. The thing that is most interesting to me is how people perceive themselves and allowing themselves to even make that change. Because I talk about self-preservation with males and females, and I think that is one of the most important tools that we could ever utilize in our lives. I mean, because just like you stated, it gives us an opportunity to know who we are, know what we are, where we came from, and then we'll take all of the pieces of the puzzle and put them together and resolve the myth of who we truly are. I mean, because as we're growing up, you had all these people, all these influences telling you what to do, what not to do, what's right, what's wrong, what's good, what's bad.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment you start to do self-preservation or self-reflect,
Yeah.
that's when you start to see who you really are outside of everything that you were taught as you were growing up.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that's one of the most important things that anybody, I don't care who you are, what walk of life you come from, it's one of the most important things that anybody could ever involve themselves in. And it's needed. It's
Yeah.
definitely needed. Um, so when you were doing each of your podcasts, what was the first thing that came to you that said, "Hey, I need to do a podcast on this"?
Well, so the first one, Solo Moms Talk, I was a divorced mom.
Mm,
My two youngest boys were preteens, and I was at my church, and the church had a discovery group, and it was all females. I think it was 14 of us, a 9-week course,
wow.
and everyone sat around talking about their lives, what went wrong, what's going wrong, how they feel. And
Mhm,
I'm listening and I'm thinking to myself while I'm listening, I would have loved to have this when my kids were younger. And I
mhm,
kept doing research and ruminating and thinking, God, we need to have something like this for single moms, because I started to think about other single moms. And he said, well, why don't you do it? Go ahead, do it.
mhm.
Right. So that's how Solo Mom Stock started, right?
Okay.
Me trying to find a solution to where single moms could talk,
Mhm,
just talk, right? Um, and while trying to start that podcast, I was paired with another aspiring podcaster and
mhm.
we co-mentored each other.
Okay.
And so he would ask me questions, and I realized I had the answers, and I was answering and I was answering. But not only that, I enjoyed the answering. I
Mhm.
enjoyed having, because I'm thinking to myself, I answered and I'm thinking, I knew that. And I actually felt good that I knew that. And
Yes.
so I realized that I really did like podcasting. And I realized also that new podcasts had a lot of casters, had a lot of questions, right?
Mhm.
And the big podcast people, they didn't have time to answer our little questions, right? So I started a podcasting meetup, and I was in Canada at this time. And within 3 days, I had like 42 members
Okay.
from,
Well, that's not
yeah,
bad.
Canada and the US. And they had questions, and I was
Mhm.
answering those questions. And so that's how Tools of the Podcast Trade came about,
Well,
because
that's
I thought
awesome.
it would be nice to talk to other people about this. And yes, and so that's how that started. And I explained how Abandoned Daughters of Caribbean Moms came about. It always
Nope.
come out of a need. First, it's a need I see for myself, but
Mhm.
I also see that need in others who,
Yeah.
yeah, who are walking the same path as I am.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
And so it's seeing that you've had so many people to walk in the same path as you, and you realizing that there were more people out here, not just you.
Mhm.
How does that make you feel now versus how you felt when you first got started?
Well, when I first started, like I said, there's always imposter syndrome, and it took
Mhm,
me 6 years, like I said, to start the first one because I found a lot of fault with who I was, right?
mhm.
Who am I to start that? I don't know anything. Who want to hear what I have to say? Nobody cares. My voice don't sound right. And I would listen to podcasts with female podcasters, just listen to their voice, and I searched for the worst, what I thought was the worst one.
Right.
And then I recorded my voice and compared it to hers and said, oh. It's not that bad. You know, but so it took me a while, I had to fight myself
Mhm.
to do it, you know. But you have to get to the point where you realize it's really not about you anymore, you know, because once you get that message, it's not an accident that you're getting that message. And if it doesn't leave you, you go to bed, you're thinking about it. You wake up, you're thinking about it.
Yep.
Something tells me that, it's you, baby. It's you. Tag, you're it, right? And so I don't know if that answers your question, but
Where that now versus where it took you back then. And it's
yeah,
understandable. It is totally understandable because a lot of times we do things and we don't realize the effect that we have at first. But then later on, as we're pushing through, we start to realize, like, man, I have a pretty positive effect on people and I'm loving this. And it gives you that drive to keep going.
yeah,
And that's that blessing right there. When you got
yeah,
that going, you just, okay, let me do this one. Well, let me do another one, and let me do another
yeah.
one. And it gets to that point to whereas even if you get that one bad apple that has something bad to say, you're like, yeah, well, maybe it just wasn't for you, but let me keep
Right.
moving.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah.
a blessing. That's a big time blessing. So we're definitely getting close to our time. What would be some of your powerful motivational messages that you would give to our audiences?
Okay. Well, the number one is always what I actually just said, is that if it keeps coming up, you need to explore that, right? If it keeps coming up, something keeps coming back to you, go ahead and try. Don't be afraid to try, because there is no such thing as failure. It's just a lesson you learned, right? It didn't turn out the way you wanted to. You learned that lesson, do something different next time. And the
Yeah.
second thing is that do some self-reflection. Do it with a journal.
Mhm.
Write down everything. And the third thing is there's always something to give thanks for.
Yes. Yes. I totally agree with you on that. No doubt.
Yeah.
Definitely always something to give thanks for. It's always something, always a blessing that can be counted. That's the way I usually say it. And
Yeah.
don't forget to count your blessings as you go through
Yeah.
life because life doesn't give you a twist or a curve that you can't handle. It just gives you a twist or a curve to let you know that you've graduated to a new level
Yeah.
in your
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so where's some of the places that we can actually reach you and learn more about these new podcasts?
Well, I'd like for people to check out my YouTube channel, Tools of the Podcast Trade. And I also blog at jrosemarie.com.
So
And yeah, and on most platforms, J Rosemarie or Solo Moms Talk.
awesome,
Yeah.
awesome. So to all of my people out there, make sure you get on this. Make sure you get on Miss J. Rosemarie because
Thank
she's
you.
on fire now. She on fire.
Thank you, Yella. I really enjoyed coming back again. I appreciate you.
It's amazing to have you back. Thank you so much for joining YTP Entertainment for the second time in a row. This is awesome. And people, for all of you who didn't see the first podcast, you definitely go check it out. It's on my YouTube page. And you can check me out at Yellow the Poet on the YouTube. So I'm telling you, you will definitely see the transformation that I'm seeing today. In a good way. Thank you so much, Miss J. Rosemarie. This has been a blessing. I greatly appreciate having you on here, and you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your night. Thank you so much. Peace and blessings.
Okay, thank you.